there's so many teams that sell hope in June and July that they know is inauthentic. Like last year when the Raiders were like Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. And I keep bringing that up because a lot of people in the organization, well, Gardner's never really been given a chance. Yeah, there's a reason. Like he's a good.
And we watched it.
And we watched it unfold. And listen, if I really want to get cynical, I can talk about selling season tickets. I can talk about trying to get people out to the yard, or you are running an organization where you're just trying to keep players invested as much as anything. But in terms of hope and optimism, Trevor Sikkema on courtesy of PFF shared this glimmer of hope and optimism for the Cleveland Browns and their fans.
Whether he's the week one starter or not, he kind of has to be a reason for optimism, right? Because even though I was a little bit lower on him, I thought he was more of, like a mid-day 3 type of a value quarterback. To get him in the 5th round, especially to the current quarterback situation that the Browns have, you are hoping that you get an absolute gem in Shedeur Sanders and that he's starting at some point, and that he shows you starting caliber capabilities at the NFL level. So genuinely, like no trolling, he is one of the other reasons of optimism if he can gain that starting role for them.
So this is what's wild about this, because there's a lot that I agree with what he had to say about Shedeur.
Mm-hmm.
This is where the business arm of a team and the football arm tend to push apart and don't necessarily share the same values. Yeah, I do think there are certain players or certain combination of players that give Browns fans hope, and I think Shedeur probably does, to more so than any quarter. Well, to than Kenny Pickett or maybe Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, for sure. Now you almost said more than Joe Flacco, but you were hesitant there.
Well, no. I mean, I think right now, if you're because I think Browns fans are looking for hope. Clearly, they are looking for hope. And they're looking for hope in anywhere they can find it. Like when we've had the talks of, it's probably going to be till 2026 till you get your quarterback. There are fans who are gobsmacked because they're like, no, but what about 2025? And I'm like, I didn't draw this up. I didn't design it. It's just the way it's going to go.
I'm not in charge of the team. Yeah. I didn't make the projections.
Yeah, don't get mad at me for having the right opinion about this. No, I kid a little bit there. But, like, I think there are 2 quarterbacks that give you hope. I think Kenny Pickett, and again, maybe there are some.
I think there are some people out there that have hope with Kenny, but I think you're right in that if you're going to say Flacco and Shedeur, that's the answer.
Yeah, and listen, I think Joe gives you hope that they can actually outperform expectations and maybe win games and maybe make the playoffs. That's not what I see with Joe. My hope with Joe is simple. It's going to make the offense watchable.
Yeah, my hope with Joe is simple as well. It's just he seems fun. That's it. That's the only hope.
And by the way, that might be the bar to clear this year.
Which, I mean, football and sports are supposed to just be entertainment at the end of the day, is it not? That's a first part of ESPN is entertainment. Like we're supposed to be entertained, and so Joe will at least do that. He'll check that box off.
And that for me is why when we think about Kenny and what you were describing, the offense with Kenny, which you're right, it is a ground control, play great defense, run the hell out of the ball, and throw a lot of short slants.
It makes your eyes bleed. Yeah. It's not very fun.
But like with Joe, like it is. I mentioned the point about like it would make your eyes bleed in the preseason, let alone in the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I don't necessarily think Joe can repeat the winning formula of 2023.
No, I don't either.
Because I think it was such a lightning in a bottle, the perfect player at the perfect moment. The perfect guy to inject hope in that moment to that locker room when it needed it most. It's a lot tougher to do it right now. And it's a lot tougher when people already have tape on you in this situation, especially in a similar offense last year in Indy. But I will not begrudge you if you have more hope because you remember what Joe did for you.
Should we be giving more optimism to Dylan Gabriel? Listen, I like my quarterbacks taller. I mean, and by taller, I mean just...
You are a size queen.
They say that about me all the time.
Yep.
But I just want him to be able to, ride amusement park rides. I don't need you to be the tallest person in the world. Just be taller than what Dylan Gabriel currently is. But if you don't think that matters with quarterbacks, and you go from the Russell Wilson school of thinking that you can be as short as you need to be, and it doesn't really matter... Well, I can see how somebody would sell themselves some optimism attached to Dylan Gabriel as a 3rd-round pick. I could see that. It just pales in comparison to the optimism attached to Shedeur or Joe Flacco, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've made this point a couple times. the toughest thing the organization could have done for Dylan in town and getting over with fans is Shedeur. Like, is full. If
because if Shedeur didn't exist, I would have to be riding the Dylan Gabriel excitement train.
Well, what's
and I don't want to ride that ride.
You're too tall to ride that.
That's
ride.
right, exactly right.
But like, there's a part of it. There's nothing that could have changed my opinion on Dylan Gabriel. I went off on draft night because of Dylan. Because it was like
leading up to draft night, I called him welfare Tua.
Yes.
How do I come back from that?
And that's not a compliment.
It's not a compliment.
Yeah, for anybody out there thinking that actually sounds like a good thing, not a compliment.
Not a good thing.
But the reason why, honestly, not drafting Shedeur would not have meant a damn thing to me for Dylan Gabriel. But for other Browns fans, yeah. I mean, you did. Whether it was Jimmy Haslam doing it, the business arm, Andrew Berry doing it, Paul DePodesta, it doesn't really matter who did it. The point is, if given those two options, a fair amount, I'm willing to say 75% of people are going to go, Shedeur gives me more hope than Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, I mean, that's because you did get extreme value with Shedeur in the 5th round, and people, although some like to rewrite the narratives that he was always going to end up being some sort of, plummeting draft pick or something like that, most people that are honest about the conversation, 1st or 2nd round, and if that's what you accept him as far as his talent is concerned, then you should have excitement for Shedeur Sanders. That is way more exciting than the other option.
Now, I do think 216-474-0092. I think this leads to there are two quarterbacks to me that present real options of hope and optimism for this season if I'm going to see them play. And it's Joe Flacco and it's Shedeur Sanders. And I do think, by the way, I think there's a hell of a chance that you get to see both quarterbacks this year.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm talking about, when I say hope, I mean, hey, I think you're going to be able to run this offense and make enough plays where it's not just the most vanilla, basic offense on the face of the planet. Now, now, if you ask me who gives you more hope, I don't think I can give you a real answer today.
You can't?
No, because I think
the problem with Joe is that even if Joe gives you hope and excitement for this year and you win a couple games, that's it. It's over. The curtains. The movie's done at the end of this season.
It is, but the problem with Shedeur is he can give you hope until he just absolutely stinks. Right?
Well, it's on the table.
And I don't know what's going to happen with Shedeur because they're pushing a couple narratives about the kid that I think are meant to, I don't know, keep him in check or incubate him.
I mean, I guess all these quarterbacks we're talking about, though, it's on the table that there's hope until they stink, though. There's no guarantee.
No, that's absolutely fair. But I think if we go to, all right, who can give you hope and might give you the best chance to fulfill it? Like if Joe Flacco starts 6-1, guys, none of us are going to be talking about where the hell do you go from here? I mean, okay, it's not going to be the predominant conversation because we're going to be in the midst of a competitive Browns season.
Right, if we get surprised that way.
And I think that to me is when I hearken back to the Gardner Minshew and the Aiden O'Connell story, that was DOA. That was dead on arrival. I kind of feel similar to some degree on this quarterback room. The only two guys who don't are Joe Flacco and Shedeur. Shedeur's interesting to me as long as he can take the job and be functional. I don't know how much we can expect that from a rookie who wasn't a top 32 pick.
Well, and meanwhile also does not have the same entry point into the NFL that, most rookie quarterbacks even have. I guess we shouldn't say rookie quarterbacks, but most quarterbacks have. And the idea that this Browns team isn't just littered with talent.
You guys can vote on this right now at afternoon 923 FAN. Does Joe Flacco or Shedeur Sanders give you more hope for this season? So I'm pretty sure that Joe can foster the elements early to foster hope and optimism. Because I think even if they're not winning, I think they're going to be a much more fun watch. I almost see it as like I see Joe maybe having early success, even in that murderous row of a stretch, and then petering out at some point, whether it's week 7, week 4.
I mean, he
could
light up the Bengals. Bengals have an awful defense. You could see week 1 him being awesome against the Bengals. Joe Burrow doing a good job though. And then maybe we have a little bit of a surprise there.
And I see Shedeur as being the opposite.
The Browns have always played the Bengals and Joe Burrow well defensively.
When Shedeur takes over, if that happens this year, I think he's going to look okay early. But I think the bar will be, can you be functional? And if he takes the job, I think that means he will be functional. And then hopefully you see progression. So I almost see the hope / optimism of them as opposite things. in the most realistic scenario, Joe starts strong and then peters out over time. Shedeur might start weaker, and then because he's younger, you might be able to get better performance, even if it's still just okay performance as opposed to functional.
Yeah, and there's some long-term hope attached to Shedeur too, which I think is important here as well. It's something that at least matters, and I think some people get the question a little maybe confused because like they'll think about like long-term prospect. There's much more hope attached to Shedeur Sanders being awesome and then going off to the races than Joe Flacco doing any of that.
No, it is. Although, I mean, long-term is relative. Joe could still come back next year as your starter. I'm not saying that's what should happen. I'm just saying.
Well, I'd say, I mean, if he wins 10 games, how's he then going to hang it up?
Yeah. Well, and
that man will play until he's 1 foot in the grave.
How are they going to find a way to not bring him back again next year? They won't, even if he peters out in the playoffs. But the long-term hope thing is interesting. Like where I'm at right now is it's like, give me a reason to like go into this season and be excited to see how it plays out.
Mm-hmm.
I think both guys fulfill that hope. And then it becomes, all right, at any point, can either Shedeur, Dylan, or Kenny give it that long-term hope?
I think the difference for me right now is that if it's Joe or it's Shedeur, I'm sitting there on like the edge of my couch and I'm watching and I'm paying attention and I'm like, this has a chance to materialize into at least interesting at a minimum, right? Whereas if it's Dylan or Kenny right now at this point, and I hope they prove me wrong, I really do. But between the two of them, I'll be more relaxed in my couch. Like, all right, I'm almost like I'm waiting for them to screw it up.
Kenny and Dylan are kind of the same guy because no, that's not fair. I put them in the same bucket because I doubt their capabilities to do it. The difference is if Dylan were to somehow get the job and he starts week 1, I think that would give me some hope. Meaning, like, if he took the job, and that's why I say I'll leave open the idea that I end up, there's a sliver of a chance that we just have the wrong read on Dylan Gabriel, and he is more what he was in college than he was in the NFL, and it does actually translate. But as of right now, I won't be as interested in Dylan Gabriel. No, I probably would be as interested in Dylan as I am Shedeur.
I just think Shedeur would be more exciting
because of everything.
Yeah, but if you took the job week 1, as you were laying out there, though, that means he had to have done something really impressive in that stretch.
And I think that's where, if Dylan were to take over, all right, so you get Joe Flacco, and then you get a smattering of Pickett, and then they go to the rookies, and Dylan's first up. I'll be like, all right, did you take the job or are you being given the job?
Mm-hmm.
And those are, whereas if anybody but Joe starts week 1, until I see him play and play poorly, I'm going to assume they took the job. So that will be so that's where the other 3 quarterbacks can offer you some hope, even if, again, hope without success will become hopeless very, very quickly for the Cleveland Browns.
I hope you're right about that with Kenny. If Kenny falls into that bucket as well, I don't know that I'll have that same sentiment. I feel like it just seems right now. I'm very limiting when it comes to the idea that I still think they're just going to trade Kenny Pickett. But if Kenny wins the job and gets to start week 1, I think just because Stefanski likes him more. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the most cynicism. All right, so the optimism of the antonym to optimism, the most cynicism I'm going to feel is if Kenny wins it, because I'll feel if Dylan wins it, again, for a rookie to win the job, I won't be like they rigged it for him.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny wins it, especially if he has a bad week 1. I'm going to try and be as optimistic. I'll try and buy into it.
But you know why I can't ever be optimistic for week 1? Maybe I'll change week 2 if he looks good in week 1. But if Kenny wins the job because he was so good in everything around the Steelers when it didn't matter, and I won't be able to escape that. I'll be thinking about that in my head.
His preseason Pickett. I love when we do like a Twitter poll.
Yeah,
and it's very cut and dry, right? Like who gives you more hope and optimism, Joe or Shedeur? And right now it's pretty even, about 52% for Shedeur. That swung back, but Mug on Twitter says, "Hope for what? Wins this year? Wins next year?" It's like, buddy, just vote on the damn poll.
You don't get to ask a lot of questions. I guess you can ask whatever you want.
Well, but I think the point is that's the beauty of a social media poll is you can just kind of infer it the way you want it.
I like people like Mug who want to know exactly what he's voting on. Because it really shapes whether or not he's going to vote it one way or another. It's a very me way of thinking in many ways.
Yeah, I think it's a very us way of thinking.
I just don't want to cast my vote to something I didn't mean to cast it.
Have you ever done those, like when applying for a job where it gives you like 10 questions And then the next screen is very similar questions, slightly different wording. And they have to like rank each question on like agree, somewhat disagree, that whole thing.
Well, it sounds like a test.
Yes.
I don't think I've ever done it with a job interview or anything like that.
I don't think I've ever passed one, because it is the biggest mind bleep that you can possibly have for me. Because if you change the wording just a little bit, it changes the entirety of the question to somebody like me.
Yeah, I used to always, in those test questions for like ACT prep and all that other stuff, I would be like, I would want clarification. And it's like, there's only one answer. And I'm like, no, I could make it multiple answers. I know I could make this multiple answers.
Yeah, really. The question stinks. And you've asked it a different way. And this question also stinks. So I do. Okay, so I passed it once. I tried to get a job at Quicken Loans when I was just out of college. And
like what, selling like mortgages or something?
Yeah. Doing like
rates and such?
Yes. I don't even remember the exact job, but I remember at the end. So they did it, and I must have passed. And then I go through 2 rounds of interviews. I come back for the third one, and I was just talking to the person, and I realized there was a camera. I realized later that there was a camera in the wall where apparently multiple people were watching me. But then they're like, they ask you questions like that in the interview.
Wait, why were they watching you? Is this a security thing, or do you feel like they were watching you?
No. They were like trying to observe. They were just very thorough
what
in their
job. Were they going for? Where you got multiple people watching you on camera?
Entry level. But they looked at me.
That should not be the case.
And they're like, this guy is suspect. No, that you can run your job search any which way you want. But I always remembered, it's like, I think in that third interview when they started doing the agree, disagree, strongly disagree, neutral. I just think I can listen, in print, total mind bleep. In person, whatever, it's total mind bleep on steroids. Couldn't handle it. Couldn't hack it.
I don't want to speak poorly of your interviewing skills. I always felt like I always thought highly of your interviewing skills.
Yeah, until you get me in those dumbass questions of like, what happens if you catch somebody stealing something?
So this is why radio works so well for you, though, is because that's not how any of these radio interviews ever go. Because like radio interviews for jobs, they never ask you, they don't try to trip you up with any of that stuff.
No. They're like, will you accept this pay?
Can you start tomorrow?
Yeah.
And are you comfortable working holidays?
Are you comfortable degrading yourself in the public eye for others' amusement and being called a moron on social media?
When the Hornets draft a player to their team, will you make jokes about his last name, or are you cool with just rolling with the punches?
And then you say, I'll make jokes about their last name. They're like,
you're hired.
And by the way, 10% raise.
It was a trick question, guys. They don't want you to play the game. They want you to make jokes.
So we're talking about optimism for the Browns this year. Optimism for the Browns with either Joe Flacco or Shedeur. And you posited something that I think is very, very important, but it doesn't change the answer here, which is, could Kevin rig the job? Which this happens. Like, could Kevin rig the job for either Kenny Pickett or Dylan Gabriel? Yes, he could. And not just him, the coaching staff. I mean,
it's his job that's on the line.
Well, but we make the biggest mistake of acting like every person in every organization buys into every player in every organization, or that once an organization drafts a player, they do everything to help a guy succeed. This is not specific to the Browns. I've known for a fact that there have been scenarios that I've covered teams where it's like, yeah, that coach just doesn't like that guy, and he's just not going to help him. Now, I don't want to say that for anybody specific to Cleveland, because I have never seen evidence of Kevin doing that. Even in the Browns' previous iterations, we've seen evidence that has been reported of guys just being like, yeah, that guy's not their guy, so he's not going to get the kind of love and whatever.
Well, and ultimately, a lot of this process is going to be subjective. I know we don't like to look at it that way in sports because we have so much data and so much numbers, but a lot of this will be, I see it this way because of my experience. Here we go.
And because of that, no matter whether you think Kevin's going to do this honestly or not, the Browns owe it to Kevin Stefanski with his job on the line to let him make that week 1 decision.
No question.
And not just week 1, probably week 11 and probably week 18 as well.
And I have a hard time thinking that'll actually last throughout the entire season.
Fair.
I mean, we've gone over the reasons why and because why I believe that, but I'm 100% lockstep with you. Like, if this is going to be the make or break year in many ways for Stefanski, and we get to find out if he's a quarterback whisperer, then guess what? We got to find out who he exactly likes and who he thinks he can win with.
And listen, the one leg up that I think of this quarterback room than previous quarterback rooms is Kevin Stefanski was a part of choosing all 4 of these guys. And that is different. He didn't choose Baker. He might have been part of choosing Jacoby Brissett. It wasn't about Jacoby Brissett. It was about getting to Deshaun Watson, who I think he chose because Deshaun Watson was here, and if he didn't want Deshaun here, but Deshaun didn't necessarily fit his system. All 4 guys, Kevin Stefanski was a part of choosing, and all 4 guys fit what Kevin Stefanski wants to do in one way or another. So
yeah,
if we're going to use that, and I think the Browns internally might be using that as a basis of like, well, you were frustrated Deshaun didn't fit your system. We got you 4 guys to fit your system. That's not enough. I might have my criticisms of Kevin in some places that I get frustrated where I feel like he falls short. All those I think are fair. But to do this the right way, and honestly, to get a fair, it's not always even just about being fair to Kevin. To get a good evaluation on Kevin. You know, like that's another big part of this.
Yeah, it's a big part of the whole what this upcoming season is. I mean, I remember we talked a couple weeks ago about like what's your biggest non-quarterback story, and for me, it was Kevin Stefanski, what he does in this season, and a lot of what we tie his worth to is the quarterback spot. Like when you think about a defense to your buddies for Kevin Stefanski, what do you go to? You go to the quarterback spot. Like you try to tell them and convince them that he knows what he's doing there. If that's his biggest defense, then he's got to hit this out of the park.
And he's got to be allowed to hit it out of the park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't be playing with golden handcuffs here, and he can't be playing with any sort of restrictions or limitations. Like he's got to be able to make his decision.
And so like I think it's got to be for the whole season. But bare minimum, you got to give him till the bye to allow him to run that quarterback room, meaning he's the guy that decides each week who starts. And by the way, it might be a move that you and I disagree with.
I probably will disagree with it. I feel like Kevin and I are not lockstep in a lot of decision making. Andrew Berry and I definitely are not lockstep in a lot of decision making.
You don't like that. You like it when we're lockstep.
Well, like I'll take it because their record isn't very good right now. I don't know that I want to be in bed with those guys.
I think it's very likely that you could get 6 weeks into the year, Kevin has a mini panic and goes to Dylan first. And we're going to have to live with that. Because if that's what he wants, again, if he picked these guys and that's what then you have to let him have that. Even if, listen, I'm not trying to be the guy that's like, you got to give him enough rope to hang himself. Yeah, that is what this season's about. And the reality is, I don't think Kevin will, but listen, there's some folks who feel like they were brought back to be slaughtered at a different day.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
That also might be true.
I've wondered that aloud.
That also might be true. It still doesn't mean that you should change the way you operate this quarterback room this year, because you should at least operate in good faith with Kevin and in fairness with Andrew as you try and just take this thing to wherever it's going to conclude.
Well, that's where some of the control by Stefanski, I feel like, does settle in, is that like if he's going to put his job on the line and he's going to try to, or in that instance that we implied, win his job back, then he's got to be able to have belief in the person, and he's got to be able to, and that's where I think the favoritism is going to come into play here. He's got to be able to think that I can win with this guy, and it's the guy that I brought to the table. And so I mean, it's going to be fascinating.
The early results here on the Twitter poll, 55% now saying Shedeur Sanders, 44% saying Joe Flacco. I bet I would really love to break down this in terms of age demographics, because every single person I speak with from down home in Wadsworth, a lot of people my mom's age and even like closer to our age are just like, man, we got to get Joe out there.
I think it's amazing how many people have seen it the way that I see it, where I want Joe until I want Shedeur. And if I go Joe to Shedeur, I'm going to be really, really happy. And I've noticed that's become more and more of a trend of that thought process, because I think it gives off hope in a couple different areas.
Is who starts at quarterback week 1 Kevin Stefanski's decision, and should it be? I think we both agree. Whether you think Kevin's a good coach or not, the answer is yes. It should be. He's the head coach until he rehires himself or does the opposite